Hi, my name's Dr. Steve Simpson. I'm a medical doctor and I work as an elite performance coach, which means you're in the right place at the right time, so welcome to the show. And a special guest this week, Lucy. She's going to help me out and keep me on track because we've got a cracking one for you today. So what are we going to talk about?
So what about some of the things you've been thinking about and working on this week?
The conclusions that I came to this week are that there's three techniques that I use with clients that have stood the test of time with me and with others too. So they are going to be the cornerstone.
That's all you'd like to share?
Yeah, and that would be good. So you're going to hear this first, what I've been up to.
All right, let's start with the first one.
Well, the first one is sometimes called the H word because some people don't like it and some people don't fully understand what it is, and that's hypnosis. Hypnosis is something that I did a little bit of training about when I was a teenager, and then for many years didn't touch it. And it's only really when I was introduced to a couple of the best hypnotists in the world and hypnotherapists that it sort of awakened that interest that I'd kept hidden.
So how do you use it?
How do I use it? I find the beauty of hypnosis, apart from the fact that I love doing it, it's to be in a hypnotic state is a great place to be. I find that as a therapist, it's an entry point into the unconscious mind.
Great.
Because the difficulty with therapy is that if we're going to be very sensible and very logical with our clients, who probably expect us to be because they're looking for some good old-fashioned common sense, unfortunately when conscious mind speaks to conscious mind, it never really moves us very far forward. I mean, it'll move us a little bit forward, obviously, but it's only when you can get, as a therapist, your unconscious mind and the unconscious mind of the client in some kind of
tandem process.
Yeah, something like that. That actually, that's where transformation comes from.
So it's a deeper level.
It's a much deeper level. It's a much deeper level of therapy, and because of that, the chances of getting a much higher
Effectiveness,
effectiveness. That, as I say, transformation is the word that comes to mind there.
So how do you get your clients to that?
Well, there's a saying in hypnosis: you have to go there first, and I believe that to be true. So I have to make sure that I'm in this altered state of mind, which is a very relaxed, deeper, more reflective state of mind. And I have to make sure that I'm there before I work with my client. So, and when I am introduced to them and we start talking to each other, within a very short space of time, we're in synchrony. And if you're going to be a scientist, you could observe that our breathing patterns become very similar. The speed and the tonality with which we talk becomes very much in tandem. Now, I don't consciously notice all that. All I know is that I just know when I'm in the right place, and I know when my client is with me, and that's when we can get on to address real issues.
So for some people that were slightly cautious or frightened by the hypnosis, how could you reassure them?
Well, I would reassure them by saying actually that it's a very normal, almost a default state for the human being. I mean, look at art, look at literature, look at poetry, look at fairy stories. They're full of rich, hypnotic, colourful, metaphorical language and ambiguity, and also listen to the way that people talk. Some of the greatest communicators on this planet, they've definitely got hypnotic voices, whether they know it or not.
So it's a part of a daily life anyway. What are some other activities that this can be applied to? That people alter people's states. I remember you speaking about that before.
Well, I would say that if we can get used to allowing ourselves to go into that state, pretty much anything we want to do in life is going to go with a lot more flow, and it's going to go a lot easier. And it has nothing to do with eyes closed or watches, and you will go deeper and deeper and all that kind of business. Look at anybody who is self-absorbed in a single task that they're doing, and you're going to find somebody who is in a mild hypnotic state.
Like in the zone.
In the zone. You see, that's if people don't like the H word, and there are times when I don't, then I think we know what the zone is. Musicians know what the groove is. People know what it means to be in flow, because we've all had experiences like that. We've pretty much, everybody has had some time in their life. The difficulty is, it's such an elusive state of mind. I mean, we know we want to get there, we know that's when we turn in our best performance, and the harder we try and get there, the less likely we are.
And what about in practice? Some practitioners use guided meditations.
They do guided meditations. They're great, and there are times when I do that as well. If I'm working with business people, I might call them visualization exercises.
And that's very common practice.
Yeah, very common.
So hypnosis is one of the first skills that you use. What about another skill? What was your second topic?
The second thing that came up of the three that I think are going to be the things that are going to be so important moving forward, and always have been, but now I have greater clarity about where they're going to fit together. The second one is related to the first, and that's a technique that I came across about 10 years ago, and it's called a deep trance induction. So deep trance, that means what it said. It is a hypnotic technique, but it doesn't have to be. There are other ways of doing it without being in a deep hypnotic trance. And the deep trance induction, identification, deep trance identification. So the best way for me to describe this, actually, Lucy, is to just ask you a few very quick questions, and the viewer will get the idea.
And I'm not hypnotised.
And you're not. Right. Well, not as far as you know, but one never knows. Hypnosis can be infectious. Maybe you've been hypnotising me. But anyway, here's an example. Let's assume that we're all faced with a big question in our lives, and all of us are. All of us are. And so just have a little think. What is what's like the big question you keep asking yourself? So I'm going to say to you now, Lucy, if you could spend an hour in a relaxed, peaceful setting with somebody who you really, really respect, and it would just be such an honour and a privilege and a joy to be with for an hour, and this person can be dead, so okay, we have to use our imagination here, living or dead. Off the top of your head, who do you like to spend an hour with, other than me?
I'd choose Oprah, because I like listening to her podcasts.
Okay, Oprah. Well, funnily enough, you see, I've done this technique with hundreds of people, and on training teams where we do it to thousands of people, and people come up with all kinds of different names, but actually I have to say Oprah is one of them. One of the more common ones. A lot of people are very much influenced and swayed and attracted to her work. But you've got an hour with Oprah. Now this exercise can go on for upwards of an hour with loads and loads of questions, but for the sake of this example, you're only allowed to ask her one question. So now what's going to be your big question?
That's hard, because she speaks about so many different things and to speak to so many different people.
Yeah, the more you know, the harder it is, yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to know what the biggest thing she's learned from all the people that she's spoken to.
So what is the biggest thing that Oprah has learned from all the people that she's spoken to? And I guess
then I probably like the more personal questions too, but it's hard to choose in one.
Yeah, we won't talk about those now, but certainly that would be an icebreaker and a pretty important question. So what is the thing that she's learned most through her experiences and the people she's spoken to? What do you think? Hypnotic voice. What do you think would be her answer?
Well, my guessing would be that she's following her passion. She's doing something that makes her happy.
Yeah.
Her job makes her happy.
Now, Lucy said that would be her guess, that she's following her passion and doing something that makes her happy. Well, I would say, stretching a little point, she said her guess, I would say that could be if that was your unconscious mind speaking, it could be intuition. And the thing is, you see, again, if I was to guess or use my intuition, I think you're going to be pretty close. I think she may well say something like that.
Yeah.
So there you are. That's why it's called deep trance identification, because if you can tap in to, even if it's only imaginary, somebody who's really good at something. It's going to stimulate those cells to fire in your own brain, and you're going to start setting up some new networks, and you're going to begin to realize, well, yes, there are things that I can do. I'm never going to be another Oprah, but I can certainly be bigger than I am now. In fact, well, I'm already pretty magnificent, but I'm just too modest. I mean, this is what we all say, because, well, the point I'm trying to make is we only use a fraction of our potential.
So what would this exercise do? Is helping you tap into another resource?
It's helping you. It's also a way of letting go, because you're not having to think about yourself, because, and you're not having to boast about yourself, but you're just, doing a little bit of freewheeling with your mind, just imagining what is it to be like Oprah, and what's so special about her. Because one of the words we use for this is modeling. If you want to be good at something, you want to be a good golfer, a good poker player, a good musician, a good artist, a good speaker, start off by studying and modeling people who are really, really good. Because I know this is a cliche, but some of that will rub off on you. You will unconsciously start to do a little bit, be a bit more like they are.
So we've skimmed the surface.
We've skimmed the surface.
If you were in a session, then you guys would ask more questions. And
this would easily go on for 2 hours, and I have seen some incredible transformations in people. Let's say people wanted to be any president of the United States. That's going to come up, or world leaders, or charismatic speakers. They're very common, or sports people. But I mean, this person that I remember, he actually had the body posture when he, at the end of this exercise, he spoke in the same way, he had the same mannerisms, and his face had even slightly changed a bit. So, and I could go on and on with, I've had people who wanted to learn, speak in a foreign language, and they have. They've done it. I mean, they haven't been fluent, but they've certainly been experimenting in a way that they probably wouldn't have done before.
Another core of their brain.
It's opened up another bit of their brain.
So maybe.
There we are. So it's very.
So that leads us into the third point.
Yeah, the third thing is I call that the triple R. It's the reptile relaxation reflex. There's a part of the brain. It's in the deep in the unconscious mind. It's one of the most primitive parts of our brain, which is sometimes called the reptile brain. I call it the lizard brain, and the more I study this reptile brain, or the deeper layers of the brain, the more convinced I am that we may think that we're civilized, intellectual people with high moral standards and all the rest of it, but the reality, I think, is very, very different. These primitive lizard instincts and drives, these basic desires and passions, focused around fear and protection and security and love and survival. Many of our thoughts and actions are governed by those drives. Now, our conscious mind, it seems to work as the sanitizer. It cleans up some of these, rather basic.
Primal instinct.
That's a good way of describing it. Primal instincts, and presents them to ourselves and to the outside world in a more civilized, acceptable way. So, if we can harness the lizard inside us and get rid of some of the less attractive aspects of it, but know that it's there and understand where some of our thoughts come from, and get the lizard working more comfortably with our ego and the conscious mind, that's another way of enhancing performance.
So marrying the two, increasing your awareness.
Yeah, so that's why all of these three things that I've mentioned are closely related. And here's a technique that anybody can use. As I said, I call it the reptile relaxation technique. I've made a video about this, and I go into the background of how, when I was actor, I was playing the part of Charles Darwin in a TV documentary series, and part of this was a very, very close encounter with a dragon lizard, and that was what really fired my thoughts about this reptile reflex. So I'm going to demonstrate it to you now. It's harmless, it's simple, but it can be hugely effective in a short space of time. So here we go. It's a human instinct when somebody is distressed, particularly a child. Anybody will instantly try and comfort this person. It's part of our human kindness, which again is part of our reptile brain. And we will hug this person. And very often the hug is a kind of a stroke. We'll stroke the arm of the person and say, no, don't cry, it'll get better, take a deep breath, all the kind of things we say. But do it yourself, and just try doing it with one or two. Use the tips of your fingers and just stroke your arm like this, heading in this direction, downwards. And whichever part of your upper arm feels correct, and press as hard or as soft, however it feels best. And if you do this within a few seconds, you'll start to feel something different. And that's why, to me, it must be a reptile reflex. It's going straight into some part of the deep brain. And it's releasing some chemicals which are very calming. So if you're in a situation where you're perhaps feeling stressed or anxious or even overexcited, perhaps you're sitting your driving test, or you've got a big job interview coming up, or you're about to go on stage, or you're about to make a major presentation. All these things that we all have to go through in our lives, which get the heart beating and the butterflies. Try this, and it'll ground you, and it'll slightly change your state of mind, just like some of the other things we've mentioned.
So it's a direct calming technique.
And
can you team that with the mantra?
That would be really good. So let's say you've got this big job interview. Fantastic job's been offered to you. It's a bit of exaggeration to say the rest of your life depends on it, but if you were to get
feels like that.
It feels like that. Yeah. So how do you want to be? I mean, how does somebody want to be in an interview like that?
So I want to be calm.
You'd want to be calm. Yeah. So if that's the word that you would use, do this stroking of your arm and say to yourself, I am calm. I am calm. And keep going. Just say it to yourself, keep going. For, even in a few seconds, you'll start to feel calmer, but you can go on for a few minutes. Obviously, you've got to be in a quiet, private place. But, the advice that I would give is why the words I am are good. I mean, there's other words that you could choose as well, but why the words I am are good is because they're in the present. One of the things that I've learned about peak performance is people should never waste too much time thinking about the past if they're looking for peak performance in the present, and they shouldn't think too much about what may or may not happen in the future, because the chances are that it won't. So staying in the present, staying in the now, these are the expressions that you will have heard.
And in the positive.
And in the positive, exactly. I am. Sort of, that I am calm would be a lot more powerful than saying, I am not going to be stressed.
The words are important.
The words are important because the brain that reptile brain, it will only hear the most important word, and if it hears that word stress, it'll kick off all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that ties the 3 points nicely together.
Thank you. I hope so.
So, is there any last way you'd like to tie in the hypnosis, the deep trance, and then the 3 R's? Well,
the hypnosis, I'd say, if you don't like the word hypnosis, meditation is a very similar state to a light altered state caused by hypnosis, and more people are practicing meditation. In my view, again, we've made videos about this, the more people who do meditation, the better, and with the way things are in the world now and the pace of things, we've never needed it more.
So it's always good to slow down.
Yeah. So we've talked about the deep trance induction. Again, doesn't need to be complicated. Doesn't even need to be deep. But whenever you want to do something, find somebody that you can respect and that's good at it, and model them. Look at their videos. Try and see them.
So watching what successful people do.
Yeah.
Learning from them.
You can't go wrong. Learning from successful people. It's not rocket science, but it works.
And then the last one that we've just spoken about.
Do this. You're probably going to be a bit skeptical. Believe me, when I started doing this, so was I. But look at my video, which will give you more background of the work that I did with this dragon lizard called Annie, that was instrumental in helping me put some of these thoughts around this technique together.
These are only 3 introductions into 3 of the topics, and you do much more as well.
Yep. But those are my hot 3. Those are the ones
for this week.
For this week. But in all of the work that I do, these will be embedded in it. I mean, there's many different techniques, many different ideas and theories I have, but always these three are going to be somewhere in there.
And I guess they look different for every person that you use as well, though.
They will, because they have to, because every person is different. Every person will resonate with a different idea, and maybe this is one of the toughest parts, one of the most challenging parts of being a therapist, is to pretty quickly be able to identify in the other person, what is their map of the world, how do they see things, what's the language they use, what are the pictures in their mind, because it's guaranteed to be different to mine, but I have to be flexible and try and present things in a way that will most likely resonate with them.
So it meets their timing, their needs, their readiness.
So I think that's enough for today. One last thing I have to say, two last things. Time for me to get back to London, so I will be saying goodbye to Lucy, but thank you for your help with the shows. You can be sure I will be back at some point. and so we will see you again shortly, I'm sure, at some point. You'll see me again when I get back to London. As always, thank you very much for supporting the channel. Any things that you want me to do a show about, please get in touch with me, because I love to have fresh ideas from people, and I will do my best to put in the show what I think will be most helpful to you. So until then, I wish you health, wealth and happiness. So enjoy your experimentation. Bye for now.